Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this week's edition of Nerd Week Live here on YouTube, where we'll talk about some of the most interesting topics in nerd news from the past week. Joining me this weekend once again, and we're going to start with Mr. Wanted, as Lewis adjusts his lighting. uh, anyway, take it away.
Hi guys, Brian D0, contributing writer for Nerd Caliber, special media guy. I also have my own little podcast type thing called the Weeb Trash Can Podcast, where we talk about anime of all kinds. It's a good time. Check it out. If I can ever get a decent link through Facebook, through YouTube chat, we can do it that way.
There you go. And now let's see whether or not, look at that beautiful magenta lighting. Baymax's best friend. Take it away, sir.
Hey everyone, it's been a while. It's been like two, 3 weeks. I was on a little bit of a hiatus as trying to get my workload under control. But hey, I'm back. Your best boy here all the time, wearing the do-rags all day and the slouchies whenever he can, chilling out with Baymax's Louis Carrera, also known as Crash the Stampede. If you want to check me out on some Fallout 76, it's also Crash Override on Fallout 76. I'm also co-producer with Nerd Caliber, just bringing you some hot news today. So I'm looking forward to seeing some comments in there and some conversation with all of y'all.
Awesome. Very cool. And so I believe people like to know what we're doing for cons and so on coming up. I believe our con schedule is pretty much done for the year. We had a team at AAC up in Nashua, New Hampshire this weekend. We had a team at Anime NYC. So you'll start to be seeing that content going up on the website and here on YouTube pretty quickly. So look forward to that, folks. I think you'll like a lot of the stuff that's coming out of there. And in advance, happy Thanksgiving for those of you who are celebrating Thanksgiving. That's an awfully nice turkey there, bud. Anyway, moving right into our first topic. And that is this image right here is the latest Marvel hero creation, not actually going into comics, unfortunately, because it looks really cool.
Yeah.
Yet. We'll get into that, hopefully. So this is Crescent and Io, or Io, depending on how you want to pronounce it. And they are in the Marvel fighting game. Marvel Future Fight? What do we call this thing?
Marvel Future Fight.
Future Fight, yeah.
Yeah.
And so, Lewis, you're the one that discovered this and put it into the group. So why don't you tell people a little bit about who this is and what's the deal here?
Honestly, I don't have a clue at all. And
All right.
It's not from a lack of research. It's just purely because I was unprepared tonight.
All right. Well,
Got
with that confession out of the way, so I don't know anything about the fighting game. I haven't played it, but I do know that there are alternate reality or alternate universe versions of certain characters, and one of the really popular ones that actually I've seen cosplayed already is Sharon Rogers, who is is an alternate reality version of the daughter of Steve Rogers and Peggy Carter. That she's in the fighting game. She has not bridged over to comics. Crescent and Io are joining their fellow Korean compatriot Lunar Snow as Korean-based heroes. Luna Snow is a K-pop star who also apparently has, I'm getting ice or, cold abilities. Io is this rather diminutive Korean girl who has the strength and power of this great big bear. I mean, Crescent is the hero. Io is the bear spirit thing. So it looks really cool. I would love to see these things come into the comics. I really hope. I mean, maybe they can make if they make Future Fight comics, that's okay. I'd like to get them into the actual mainstream canon, so we can have Korean heroes in the mainstream canon line.
It wouldn't be unheard of with a few of the other games that Marvel has released, a few of the other mobile games. Some heroes that were created for them transitioned over into into either canon comic book lines, or is specific to that game comic book line, which is also interesting. And I know Marvel has been making a big push towards not just regular diversity, but also reaching out to other countries and creating more characters out there, like South Korea, Korea in general. More Chinese heroes, Indian. There's a few East Indian ones that are coming down the pipe from what I've seen. So I mean, I don't see why these couldn't transition over.
I don't see.
I mean,
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I find this generally interesting because of how much Marvel seems to be pushing this game. I haven't really dabbled in this game either. I don't think any of us have. When it comes to phone games, that's where my ADD kicks in the most. I'll play it for a little while, and it's like, oh, I'm bored now. And from what I can tell, it looks like a squad based game of some sort, a squad based card fighter game of some sort. But
It's kind of like I remember there was one mobile game a year ago. I can't exactly remember what it was called, but it was you had like little sprite heroes, and you would make your own groups, and you would get like rarer versions of those characters, and so on and so forth. And it's basically the same concept.
yeah,
Yeah, we discussed this last week about I don't play mobile games either at all to speak of, so this isn't going to be on my radar. And I just want to say hello to everybody in the chat. Thanks you all for joining. Happy Thanksgiving back to you, Clorox. I would also read a comic, whether it was either just a non-canon future fights with these characters, Ruben and Clorox. I agree with you there. But I really would like to see them get into the mainstream line. I mean, we need a wider universe, which is kind of silly when you think that there are Shi'ar and other things in the universe. But we need a wider universe of characters here on Earth, greater representation, and they've got these. They just created them. They're in, they have the backstories. They've got the products. Get them in comics, please.
Yeah, yes. I honestly don't see why not. I know DC recently in the last year and a half have done a big push in that direction with Super Dash Man and all of the Chinese Asian Justice League, and the way they introduced them was actually really interesting in that these heroes have always at that point in the current canon have existed for quite a while. It's just Justice League tends to focus more on this hemisphere, and these guys were over there.
Yep. Yeah. So let's hope. Sort of ghettoizing them into this fighting game seems really a waste of really good possible characters and interesting characters.
Absolutely.
Do something about that. Moving on to our next topic. Yay! That was a big yay. Big fist pump for me. What the news is that coming soon, I should have gotten into my Photoshop and replaced that with January 4th, 2019. Because that's the date. That's it, folks. That's the date that Young Justice Outsiders hits DC Universe. I still haven't bought my subscription, so I haven't caught up on Titans, but I guarantee, I can't remember his name, the Cajun Cooking Show guy, used to say that I will absolutely have that subscription by January 4th, because I will not miss the very first episode of Young Justice Outsiders.
Whereupon I do have a subscription, and I haven't had a chance to watch it at all. So my plan is to binge all of Titans this week while I'm trying to struggle from turkey coma. Meanwhile, I have a friend of mine who is family using my sub, and they're giving me brief synopsises of all the things that are going on, and I'm just like, I gotta get on this for Titans, and I can't wait for Young Justice. I gotta be ready.
You gotta. No pressure, but you gotta. Kimberly, are they ever going to make any more games? Is Who ever going to make any more games? I'm not sure I have an answer to that. Luminous, there is a Korean hero in the Marvel canon named White Fox?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Doesn't get a lot of airtime. There are a few actual Korean heroes in Marvel. You just don't ever really hear about them. Usually they're like one shots, Alpha Flight members, things like that. They're never in main comics as much, which is a letdown, to be honest.
Somebody remind me, is Silk Korean American or Chinese American? I don't recall.
Neither do I.
Somebody up there?
I can.
I want to say she's Chinese. I'm not 100%, but I want to say she's Chinese. But her last name is Moon, so could be anything.
Kimberly, is Marvel going to make more games? Oh, guaranteed. I'm not sure what. I haven't read what they have in the pipeline, but oh yeah, they're going to make more games.
So there is rumors of a Marvel AAA game coming out soon.
She's Korean American.
She's Korean American. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So there is rumor of a giant AAA Marvel game coming out soon. They're just waiting for the next Avengers movie, but it's supposed to be like MMO-ish or something like that.
So basically, you walk around and you sweep up the dust of dead heroes.
half of them anyway.
Or half of them, yes. Well, no, you sweep up all the dust of the dead heroes. Yeah. Anyway, so there's no really other news out there about the Young Justice Outsiders, except that's the date, folks, January 4th. Be there or be somewhere else. Can Deadpool be in one of them?
Deadpool had his own game.
Yeah, and I'm sure he will be now that licensing issues. Actually, I don't know who holds the licenses for any game development for Deadpool. Usually when you license things, you license particular types of entertainment. So game licenses are often completely separate from movie or TV licenses. So I don't know where that sits.
I mean, they did. I mean, that was a big issue with Marvel vs. Capcom, but
yeah. And Mike, do you mean when you say Dr. Cho, do you mean Dr. Amadeus Cho?
Age of Ultron. I don't recall that her name was Cho, but it might have been. She was, I believe, Korean or Korean American. But not a hero, but definitely a character. And a recurring character both in the comics and in the movie. Anyway, so that's it for Young Justice. Not a whole lot there, but I can't wait. Well, that's a Happy New Year for me. Moving on to our next topic. This is going to be huge for some people.
Oh, yeah.
That is the actual Laserdisc box art for Sailor Moon Stars. And the news is, I had no idea this was the case. The news is, the original unedited version of that, which is the final arc of the original Sailor Moon anime, never made it to the United States. It was never released in this country. Until, well, not now, but soon. They are actually putting out DVDs, Blu-rays, I guess, of this particular final they call it the final story arc or final season, but like animes back then, that's not 12 episodes, that's 30 something.
Yeah. That's a whole lifetime of episodes.
Yeah. So they're actually releasing it in two iterations. Early 29, Blu-ray and DVD.
Hell yeah.
This is another thing. I've seen people, so I don't follow the Sailor Moon canon or anime or stories or anything. I've seen people cosplay the Starlights, which are the ones in the image that's still up there, the ones with the black costumes.
Yes.
I did not realize that apparently canon, they are male until they transform.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And in the American version, they did a lot of editing to it because over here in America, we don't like that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So.
Oh no. Yeah. Yeah. There was never like an actual TV broadcast of it here in the state. Because God. They've given similar treatment to male gay characters in previous series. So this would have been a nightmare for Deacon or whatever studio was doing the later seasons of Sailor Moon.
Yeah, well, a nightmare is certainly here in the United States, and a nightmare for people who think that that sort of stuff is a nightmare. Um, I'm kind of surprised it took that long um, that they actually to get this into the United States. I mean, attitudes have changed drastically for this kind of entertainment, and certainly in the presentation of Japanese anime. I mean,
I I feel like it was more of a licensing issue at this point
Yeah.
than uh you know, not having an issue with transgender characters. I think it was more of a like I haven't really looked into it because I didn't have a lot of time recently, but I know when they did the reboot, and I say that with air quotes because it wasn't really a reboot, just a modernization of Sailor Moon. They had a heck of a time getting that going because there was just a ton of passover with in terms of like the copyright. So it was like hunting down who had the rights, the music, all of that kind of stuff.
yeah, I can see
So
that. It's even if it was a shame, at least it's coming. So early this coming year, folks, if you really want to see how that should have ended, how that final arc in the final season of Sailor Moon's original anime run should have ended, you can go do that, DVD or Blu-ray. No specific date, but it does say early 2019.
And Mike, to answer your question really briefly, it's a magical girl anime about women who fight creatures who are trying to destroy the world.
Yeah, I actually thank you because I kind of
Yeah.
assumed that Mike was being facetious. I didn't realize that there was somebody who didn't know what Sailor Moon is. I mean, like I don't watch it, but I know what Sailor Moon is. Um,
Eh,
Yeah. I feel like Sailor Moon is pretty ubiquitous at this point in pop culture.
yeah, but then there are things that I think everybody knows, and obviously they don't. Moving on to our next one, and this is one of two interesting announcements for the upcoming Christmas season. The first is of course, the Aquaman, and Mera, and director James Wan, and some other character. Um, and the news is that Aquaman is going to be available to be watched 5 days before its premiere if you are an Amazon Prime subscriber. Specific tickets and specific shows on December 15th that will only be available to Amazon Prime subscribers. That's kind of amazing, kind of surprising.
Bezos strikes again.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
You're the richest person in the world. I guess you can do stuff like that.
Yes, how magnanimous of him.
How magnanimous. Here's the question. What happens if somebody creates a Prime account on December 14th, buys the tickets, and then dumps this Prime account on December 16th? Now, do you have to be a subscriber for a certain length of time to get the tickets? I don't...
Can you, like a, can you, can you get like a trial membership and buy the tickets?
Yeah.
There's actually a trial membership for Amazon Prime. So, and then they bill you when the trial ends after notifying you that they're going to bill you. So, yeah. I mean, I feel like it's just a way to like hook people in and being like, "Hey, 2-day shipping, music, all our movies, and you get this ticket to go see Fish Guy."
Not
Wait,
not
that's it.
not the last
That's
fish
funny.
guy, which involved all sorts of fish sex. So this one might, but
That was the good Fish Guy.
good fish guy. And just to give you a heads up, Alana, thank you for joining our show, and we will try to keep things relatively clean. But you got to understand, this is a show with a bunch of adults here talking about nerd stuff. So sometimes little references to things like that will happen.
I promise nothing.
I promise nothing. Well, yeah, Lewis really promises nothing. So so folks, 7 p.m. on December 15th, it's going to be one showing, but it looks like every major movie theater chain is involved in this. So there will be somebody somewhere around you who's going to be doing this preview show. So, looking forward to it.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it too, man. I'm looking forward to gushing over him when I see him again.
Cool. Alana, we're not going to go into that just because we don't really have time. I mean, we all do different things. So we don't do this for a living, but God, I wish we could. Don't know about you guys, but this would be a dream for me. Anyway, moving on to our next topic. And that is that, or sort of that. What that is an actual early concept art for Super Nintendo Land, which isn't exactly the name for it. I screwed that up. It is Super Nintendo what? It's Super Mario Worlds. Yeah, but the news is, and this has been in the works and planning with Universal Studios for a long time, and they have started breaking ground already in Hollywood, Universal Studios, and the Japanese theme park version.
Whoa!
Yeah.
They're serious.
Very similar, apparently. It's going to be very similar to the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, which was a huge hit for them.
Oh, hell yeah. I mean, it's not really my cup of tea, but it looks awesome as heck, and I think people love it, especially in Japan.
Or here. I mean, think of how many of our friends would just, absolutely, if you're going to be down in Florida and you're doing the Orlando tours, you're going to hit the Super Mario theme park.
Yeah, I mean, why not? I mean,
so the best thing to... Nope, go ahead, Byron.
Nintendo is essentially the Disney of the video game world, so why not?
Yeah. The best thing to do now, because this is just starting to be groundbreaking, is to start casually creating a rumor that you can bump your head against a block with a question mark on it and see how many stupid friends of yours go down there and do that.
Oh, that is evil and wonderful.
That's my 2019 resolution.
Trick people into, in 2022 or whenever they get it done, to go to Orlando and smack their heads against blocks of brick blocks.
Make sure to tell all the Proud Boys to do that, and that they'll get everything they want in this world. They do it.
Yeah. Yeah, Clorox, I agree. That place is going to make lots of money. There's
Cashola.
Yeah, cashola, rolling in the filthy, filthy lucre. Not that Nintendo needs anymore, but certainly not going to chastise them for wanting to make more. And why did Audrey 2 show up?
Because I'm excited about this new theme park. That's why.
Oh, Piranha Plant. Because that's Piranha Plant, not Audrey 2, right?
Yes.
There we go.
Showing your age there.
I am. Moving on to our second great and wonderful Christmas gift to all of us nerds. That is the news that right there, Infinity War, Avengers Infinity War, will hit Netflix on Christmas Day. So if you haven't seen it, if you haven't paid the money to rent it, to re-watch it a second time, if you're waiting for it to hit something, Netflix, December 25th, Christmas Day, Avengers Infinity War.
Because that's something I want to do on Christmas Day, is cry my eyes out.
Well, so I was just going to say, sadly, lots of people do, but no, not for that reason. Yeah, it's a good point. It's not exactly what you'd call a happy Christmas movie.
But Christmas is not exactly happy either.
That's true.
And Luminous, I could understand how you feel. I'm pretty sure, and just don't quote me on this, so Google Foo might be helpful, but they probably wouldn't let people do IMAX. I'm not 100%. It might be something, Rodney, I don't know if you know, if the Amazon tickets allow for IMAX. Usually they don't.
Yeah, I haven't seen any restriction. I know that a lot of the theaters will have IMAX theaters in their... AMC has at least one IMAX screen in almost every one of their larger theaters that have multiple screens. Jordan's...
has an equivalent.
So Luminous was saying that it doesn't look like this is going to be at Jordan's IMAX theaters. For those of you who are here in Massachusetts, there is a furniture store chain that has IMAX theaters in the furniture store, Jordan's Furniture. They are enormous. They are huge theaters with a fantastic screen, amazing lighting, bass woofers in the seats, so you vibrate when things explode. It's a really great experience, but it's often just that particular. They only have one screen because they have the one theater, and therefore they are sort of limited as to what they can show. They may have booked stuff way in advance before Amazon even put this thing up there.
Fair.
Anyway, so sorry, just wanted to tell you people what Luminous was talking about and what Lewis was responding to as far as this Jordan's thing.
On to the next one.
Yes. So anyway, December 25th, Christmas, folks. Avengers Infinity War. I did want to add one more thing. So this is kind of a last hurrah for Netflix, because starting early next year, the deal between Disney, Marvel, and Netflix ends. And it was not renewed by Disney and Marvel before the next big Marvel movie comes out. So before Captain Marvel comes out, this is done. That deal is done. So they went out on a bang. I mean, that's awesome. But because with the Fox deal, Disney essentially wound up with close to 100% control of Hulu, and they're going to do their own streaming service. Yeah, that's done. So, big way to go out there, Netflix.
Oh, yeah.
Moving on to our next one, and that is Devil May Cry anime. No, it's not any news about the old Devil May Cry. Another one. That's the original one that just popped up there, or a screen grab from the original one that just popped up there. But the news is that the producer of Castlevania, the Netflix Castlevania, is planning to make another Devil May Cry anime. Does not have a home as of yet. The initial stories were saying that it was going to be on Netflix, and that's not correct. It just happens to be that it's this guy, Adi Shankar, who is responsible for Castlevania on Netflix. So that's it. No real news about when it's going to happen or where it's going to be. But, he's working on it.
I feel like nowadays the default is always to say Netflix. And anytime you have a show that's like being juggled, it's like, hey, where's this going to be at? Netflix. And it's not entirely wrong. I mean, Castlevania was there. Why not try to option it to the same network that picked up your other work? It's a potential, and considering how popular Castlevania was, I don't see Netflix not being thirsty and snatching it up.
I can see that. Go ahead.
I have this amazing headcanon in my head where Warren Ellis writes this show as well. I'm just I know it's probably not going to happen, but
you got to.
I would totally jump.
I don't discount that. So the producer's job is hiring the talent. So Shankar was the one who was responsible for getting Warren Ellis on Castlevania.
You realize how fucking hilarious a Warren Ellis produced Devil May Cry series would be? It would have more of the spirit of the games in it, for sure.
So this time I'm going to respond to Mike as though I believe that he has no idea what Devil May Cry is. Devil May Cry is a game, franchise actually, about a bunch of people who are fighting demons that are invading the world. And it has been turned into an anime at least once. What other properties has happened with Devil May Cry? There have been a couple of animated movies too, right?
Not that I recollect. I don't think so.
Maybe not. Maybe I'm thinking of the anime. But anyway, so that's what it is, Mike. A game that became an anime that is going to become an anime again. So, again, like I said, no real information on that other than it's planned to happen, so stay tuned as we get more stuff.
It will be better than the last one.
Yeah, the last one was not particularly spectacular. It It didn't capture Dante at all, I don't think.
I liked it, but it was like watching Blood Plus.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. That's
Like it was
actually
just okay.
that's a great comparison. If you're not anime fans, you have no idea what Lewis just said, but trust us when we say that's a valid comparison. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not an anime fan either. I just play one on TV, so sometimes I'll throw out an anime thing, and then I'll be proud of myself later that I knew it.
So, ding! Magically scored one somehow. So,
Job.
moving on to our next one. This is a head shaker to me, I gotta say. That is Jon Cryer, Pretty in Pink, 2.5 Men for forever. More than a decade, I think that show's been running, or had been running. And he has been cast in Supergirl on CW as Lex Luthor.
Definitely an interesting choice.
Interesting choice is a good way to put it, Byron.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not super worried because, Jon Cryer, first of all, he has a connection to the Superman lineage. Remember that was like remember the old Christopher Reeve movies.
Was he in one?
Yes, he was. He was. I'm pretty sure he was.
All right.
He was like he was like Lex's nephew, I think.
Interesting. I'll have to look that up. I don't remember it. I could bring up his IMDb profile and it would probably tell me, but I don't know.
All right. Well, yeah, like he definitely is a talented actor, but I trust Greg Berlanti and like his people. They know what they're doing. They hit it out the park with their casting so far within this franchise. Like Ruby Rose as Batwoman. The guy playing Superman and Supergirl, he nailed it.
Oh, he was perfect. They really should make a Superman series if they get the rights to that using that actor. But so one of my problems with Lex Luthor in Batman v Superman is that there was no real menace there. He couldn't pull off menace. Just couldn't do it.
Oh.
Jon Cryer, I've never, ever seen him do anything even remotely dramatic, much less, say, menacing. And so I don't see how, unless they're taking Lex Luthor into a different tack.
Probably not, because they've been pretty consistent. I do agree that, because I've never seen him in anything serious, anything that he's been dramatic in. But I'll also wager that sometimes when you see a person who's typecast enough as a comedic person, when they bang out the dramatic chops, they kill it. One person that always comes to mind in this particular example would be Robin Williams.
Yep.
Because we know Robin Williams as being comedic, and then 1 hour photo, holy shit.
Or Fisher King, or no question. Comic actors can do very dramatic work. I just have never seen, Jon Cryer do anything that indicates that he has any interest, to say nothing of capability of doing that. Mike, Jon Cryer, I don't know if you're familiar with the long-running TV comedy 2.5 Men. He was on that.
I think at this point he's just trolling Rodney.
He could be.
At this point he's just trolling.
Well, that's true. Illuminous, good point that they have Supergirl has a different take on Jimmy Olsen. James Olsen. And I like that take. I think they did a great job, and maybe they will be doing a different take on Lex Luthor. But if it's a comic take, I'm not in for it. Not that I watch Supergirl anyway. I think the writing is atrocious. It's shockingly bad for a Berlanti production. So I've tried and tried and tried, and just can't get back into it. So I'm not really sure. I'll give it a try because I want to see how Jon Cryer does and what they do with it. But if it's typical Supergirl level writing, I give my tolerance 2 episodes.
Fair enough.
Yeah, we'll see.
That we will. You know what else we'll see? We'll see that. That is artwork from the upcoming graphic novel that is the first of what is planned to be apparently a number of collaborative projects between Riot Games for League of Legends content in Marvel comic books.
Pardon me while I groan.
Well, I groan and cheer, kind of. So first off, this is the story of the character Ash, and the graphic novel is going to be Ash's origin story. And since Ash was one of the first additional characters brought into League of Legends, apparently, looks like they're starting at the back, and they're going to be mining a lot of content for these comics. So why the groan, Byron? Fill us in.
I'm just done with League as a whole. It's Riot Games has tried so hard to force it down our throats, and it's just like, why? It's not that great of a game. Why do you want to make us care?
So that's an interesting turn of phrase, given that one of the other problems with Riot Games is their horrible track record with misogyny, sexism, and other workplace problems, harassment, etc. Why is my camera flipping all the time? That's weird. Anyway, sorry, folks. I've just noticed that my camera keeps flipping orientation. So I kind of have a little bit of a cringe thinking that Marvel is just doing more to enhance the validity of Riot as a creator of intellectual property when they have all these issues going on in their workplace. But I also understand it's huge. It's huge.
So, I mean, let's be real here. Like for whatever Marvel plays itself at, Marvel is never one to shy away from controversy when they need and want money. But they're not looking at controversy in terms of Riot. They don't care about that. That's Riot's problem. That's not Marvel's problem. Marvel is mining the rich history that League of Legends has. League of Legends has tons of lore that people want to know about, but don't want to become involved in the games to learn them. And it sounds a little weird, but I will give you one hell of a good example of when you do comic books and things like that amp up a game. Gears of War.
Yeah.
Gears of War, story, all right. You play the game. The first game especially, very, very devoid of a lot of story. You go A to B, and here's some filler about what's going on in between those two. What made Gears of War really get popular is that they released a ton of books that filled in all the world, all the lore, the different factions, the Pendulum War, all of that stuff. And that made people play the game more because they did a fantastic job of tying those little tidbits into each iteration of the game. So as you read the books always came out right before the game, whatever 3.2.3 would come out, and then you go in there and you're like, oh my god, this character was a person that used to be a bad guy. This woman used to do this. This is why Anya does that. There was a lot there. Mm-hmm. And League of Legends, if I was running League, if I was Riot, I would absolutely be banging those bad boys out because people would sop them up like they're mangas.
That's true. And Riot would have much less of a harassment problem too. So, yeah, Lewis for CEO of Riot. Anyway, Mike, this does look dope, and I agree. I'm kind of an art snob when it comes to comics. No, I'm not kind of. I am an art snob when it comes to comics, and I really like the art style.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah, it looks good. It looks sharp. I might pick it up. You never know. Not that I know jack about League of Legends characters, other than the ones I photograph.
The art style actually kind of reminds me of Witchblade,
Yeah,
Darkness, Wildstorm art style.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, that kind of exaggerated proportion, but sharp glossiness to it, which I'm always been a fan of. I liked it with Wildstorm when they did it.
Yeah, that mixed with the latest, the most previous run of Conan stories on Dynamite Comics,
Yeah.
That art. So if you put those two artists together, that's kind of what this looks like in my mind. But so yeah, go out and buy it, folks. If you're a League fan or if you're a fan of fantasy, comic book storytelling or whatever, get it in there. I'm not really sure how fantasy it's going to be. Actually, now that I think about it, once they start getting into characters like Vi and so on, you've got mechanical hands and police uniforms, and it's
I mean, it existed in other mediums.
Yeah.
Cyberpunk being one.
That's true.
Shadowrun being a perfect one.
Actually,
So,
Shadowrun. Yeah, good point.
Yeah, it'll work if you write it well enough. You can make anything work.
See previous example of how not to do that. Supergirl.
It's gotta just et tu, Brutus.
I gotta put that knife in because I wanted it to be so good. The pilot was so good, and off a cliff. Anyway, moving on to our next topic. So that right there is E3 from 2017. And when I went to search for an article or a photograph, an image for this particular topic, in the top 10 results, they were almost all crowd shots of E3 from the last few years with Sony and PlayStation right there in the front, which is really ironic because the news is Sony is out of E3 this coming year. They will not be doing E3. That makes them now joining Microsoft, which pulled out, EA, which now holds its own event in right before E3. Nintendo, as this article points out, has spent the past 5 years not doing live press conferences and doing pre-recorded videos. So no live presence by Nintendo, Microsoft, or EA, and now Sony. What in the world is going to happen to E3?
It'll probably shrink, go back to just being press only, and then probably boost indie developers, because E3. I mean, I'll be honest. Like E3 when I was a kid was like the mecca of everything. Like you wanted to go to E3 to see all the best games and cutting edge systems. But we live in an era of social media where information flies like that. You don't really need E3 anymore. Companies are giving out their information freely to anyone at any time. They do their own press releases on a whim. We get half our information from Twitter.
Yep.
So who needs E3? Who needs to travel out to E3 to see all this stuff? By the time you get to E3, you see what you want to see and you start reporting. If you start reporting the day of your arrival, you're still going to be behind.
Right. I agree. If the idea for using an event like this is to get information out to the wide audience, that's no longer necessary. Sony puts out something to 3 of the top, say video game vloggers on YouTube here or Twitch or wherever, and within, like you said with Twitter, within minutes, that's reached more people than they can possibly reach in all of the press conferences and live coverage of that and whatever else happens at E3. Like that. And it's just like Thanos. Boom, and half the displayers at E3 disappeared and turned to dust. So there's no reason to spend that kind of money, and that's the whole thing. When it comes to marketing bang for your buck, the marketing value of something like E3 is greatly reduced for a company that has pathways to get out their information for free instantly and to a much, much wider audience.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's pretty much why these companies are just pulling out and no longer doing, and not only that, but they also go to PAX and do those things at PAX. So like San Diego Comic-Con is another place where they go. That's more movie industry, but you do see occasionally Sony and them popping up there when it's something in tying into a movie or something that they really want to get out there. So like
Tokyo Game Show.
Exactly.
Gamescom in Germany. I think right now more news, actual game industry news, comes out of Tokyo Game Show and Gamescom in Germany than E3 at this point. I'm wondering, as a local, and this is completely, guys, folks out there in the YouTube world from not around New England or not around Boston particularly, I wonder what the effect on PAX East is going to be. I've noticed over the last few years that the bigger publishers aren't always represented. Sometimes they rotate in and out, and some just haven't been there in a long time. And it is getting more of a developers, studio, and indie, frankly, games show. And
I was talking about you earlier, Rodney,
yeah,
about how this is like that's just the kind of show that PAX East is. Like, it's more beneficial for them for those developers to do it because this is their chance to showcase all that hype they've been building up until this point. Like, I remember my first PAX when Mortal Kombat 9 came out. There was so much hype for that. They were like, they had this on display. They were pimping the hell out of it.
yeah.
Yeah. And to be fair too, PAX has always been about indie stuff more than mainstream. They were one of the first ones to bang out Gears of War and a few other things and host those companies. But the creators of Penny Arcade have always been more focused on indie things. They want to promote the small developers over the large ones, and their rationale has always been pretty solid in that why give space to a big company that can afford a couple $1,000s worth of booth and nonsense and not give equal space to the person who has the 8-bit game and it took 2 people to develop. Those are the people that they want to showcase. They don't want to showcase Bethesda.
Well, yeah, except they have to have Bethesda and Microsoft and whoever to pay for offering the indie game showcase, which they do, at a discount rate. You can only cut down booth size so much and say, hey, here's how we can make it affordable to you. They still need those larger companies to come in and pay for all of that huge amount of floor space, to offset the costs.
That is true, but to my understanding, if Bethesda took this amount of space and you filled this amount of space with indie booths as opposed to just Bethesda having this amount of space, you can make equal to or more back in terms of it. And the big companies, they attend the other PAXs, like PAX Central and all that, and they probably most likely have contracts to funnel in extra money for the other ones.
Yeah.
So they're pretty good about PAX is pretty good about negotiating their costs in terms of but from what they've said several times on different press releases, they're more interested in pushing indie developers than they're looking for mainstream.
They certainly have said that, and they certainly, of any organization out there of that size, they are the ones that are doing it. I mean, they are walking the walk. But, and I know this for a fact, they need the large studios, they need the large developers, the publishers, to be able to offset the costs. They cannot get the same cost of 10,000 square feet of Microsoft by putting 500 indie developer booths in there. It's just not going to work because they won't get the number of attendees.
True, that they will. They won't, but there is too where you can have one large indie or two large mainstream. Because if the last few times I've been to PAX, a large chunk of it has been hardware. And
True.
Intel, Logitech, Razer, all of them occupying massive space. Razer, if I recall, last time I was there, had a huge chunk of the center floor just dedicated to their accessories, their latest handsets. They had the wall with the keyboards.
Yep.
So, and that would help offset the cost of the big publishers not being there. This
came from that show.
Yeah.
So.
I remember the first year, the first or second year, where they were just giving out like Bluetooth controllers that you put your cell phone on and play games. They're just tossing those bad boys out, $300 a pop. and they give away like a couple hundred of those things. I mean, a lot of people I know go there and like they go in with like, hey, Lewis, I'm just gonna check out the indie games, and then when I check in with them on Sunday, dude's got a goddamn gaming chair, a keyboard. They won like 3 Pentium things, like, toys from Loot Crate, Loot Box. Loot Box has their thing there. Like, there's a whole lot going on there besides the mainstream developers.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. So PAX was founded as the game crowd, the game users, the game players alternative to E3. Because when PAX was founded, E3 was just press. And then it flirted with allowing people in, and then that became a problem for press. So it became press again, and then they moved back in the last few years to allowing a small number of people in as just attendees. I don't know that PAX needs to have that distinction any longer, because E3 is losing ground rapidly here.
I don't think so, and I feel like they've proven that with PAX Unplugged.
Yeah, all right. It's kind of a different thing. I think PAX Unplugged is them deciding that they understand that there was a huge unmet need in the last few years, particularly for a tabletop games only games conference.
It absolutely is, because they've gone from niche to mainstream to niche again. But also, it's proven that you don't need video games to have a game convention.
Well, true.
You just need a different type of game.
Gen Con.
Yeah, I was just getting ready to say that.
MagFest.
Yeah, well, MagFest does also integrate video games to some extent, right?
They do.
Yeah.
They do. Yeah.
MagFest is open to everything.
Yeah, including music and gaming festival. Anyway, folks, we're getting close to an hour here, so we're going to wrap it up. That was our last topic. Who knows what's going to happen to E3? It'll be interesting to see what it's like this coming summer, and how, if that affects PAX East this spring. Stay tuned. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you for the chats. There's a lot of fun, good stuff in there. And so I did not introduce myself at the beginning, did I? So I will introduce myself at the end here. Rodney Brown, the editor-in-chief of Nerd Caliber, first-person shooter on the internet, and is saying goodbye for Byron D0, and for Crash the Photos, Crash the Stampede, Crash Override, Louis Correa. And by the way, you know what? Because you didn't tout it, Byron, we're going to give you the last word to tout your podcast.
Okay, I'll tout it. The Weeb Trash Can Podcast. We are on the Podomat website. We are also a part of the Podcast Massachusetts Network. We talk about anime. We analyze different shows. We talk about our favorite characters. It's a lot of fun. We're all a bunch of old otakus who've been in this fandom for a while.
I remember the first Sailor Moon. It was awesome. All right, folks. So thank you very much for joining us. Everybody, if you celebrate Thanksgiving, have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Stay safe on the roads if you're traveling. Stay warm. New England is about to get hit with an Arctic blast. And to my relatives up in Maine that got dumped on with snow, apparently today, be safe, folks. But you're in Maine, so you know how to do that anyway. Thank you, folks. And we'll see you next week, next Tuesday, for another edition of Nerd Week Live. Bye-bye.
Bye.